Today we are welcoming my friend Rob Schneider. He kind of has been promoted in the press as comedian Rob Schneider. That doesn't quite capture all of Rob's talents, including having been a screenwriter and a film actor and producer and a Saturday Night Live script, which is really a skit, skit-based improv sort of comedy. So he does everything. But the New York Times and others have labeled him a problem, that he is some sort of source of grave misinformation and needs to be silenced. And he and I did a show back in 2020 that New York Times reacted to with vilification. And we will review that article. In the meantime, lately, Rob has become somewhat of a firebrand on Twitter, I've noticed. I'll read you some of his recent tweets before we get right into the body of the show. Take a brief break here and be right back with the great Rob Schneider.
Our laws, as it pertains to substances, are draconian and bizarre. The psychopaths start this way. He was an alcoholic because of social media and pornography, PTSD, love addiction, fentanyl and heroin. Ridiculous. I'm a doctor, for sake. Where the hell do you think I learned that? I'm just saying, you go to treatment before you kill people. I am a clinician. I observe things about these chemicals. Let's just deal with what's real. We used to get these calls on Loveline all the time. Educate adolescents and to prevent and to treat. If you have trouble you can't stop and you want to help stop it, I can help. I got a lot to say. I got a lot more to say.
I think everyone knows the next medical crisis could be just around the corner, whether it comes in the form of another pandemic or something much more routine like a tick bite. You and your family need to be prepared. That's where the wellness company comes in. You know the wellness company. We have their physicians on, like Dr. McCullough, frequently. The wellness company and their doctors are medical professionals you can trust. And their new medical emergency kits are the gold standard when it comes to keeping you safe and healthy.
It's a safety net. It's an insurance policy,
yeah, absolutely,
that you hope you're not going to need, but if you need it, you sure as heck are going to wish you had it if you need it.
Be ready for anything. This medical emergency kit contains an assortment of life-saving medications, including ivermectin, Z-Pak. The medical emergency kit provides a guidebook to aid in the safe use of all these life-saving medications. From anthrax to tick bites to COVID-19, the wellness company's medical emergency kit is exactly what you need to have on hand to be prepared. Rest assured, knowing that you have emergency antibiotics, antivirals, and antiparasitics on hand to help you and your family stay safe from whatever life throws at you next. Go to drdrew.com/TWC. That is DRDREW.com/TWC to get 10% off today. Just click on that link. Thank you to our friends at TWC. I think they're going down a very interesting road there, and we'll have access to a lot of interesting medical treatments, frankly. But stay tuned for more of that. As I was saying, Rob Schneider, I've known Rob for a long time. We used to live in the same community, and I think that's how we got hooked up, or maybe through Loveline. But we'll talk about the little journey he and I have been on through COVID together. We were put in various cancellation prisons. The guillotine was brought out especially for us. And we'll look in retrospect, using the retrospectoscope. How wise were those brilliant journalists at the time in 2020? And I just noticed Emily Barr sent me a article that was written about a tweet that Rob put out that essentially said, "Canada, what's wrong with you? Please reclaim your rightful place in being the coolest country in the world." The great Rob Schneider joins us, and a fan of Canada, in spite of their recent prime minister's excesses.
I know, but the thing is, there is no consequence. There's no repercussions for this tyrannical behavior. I mean, Justin Trudeau now is backtracking and saying that he never forced anyone to get vaccinated. He never forced anyone. And it just, they forget we have video. We have the proof. We have the documents.
I know.
And
they say this stuff they say these things into a microphone with a camera rolling and go, what are you talking about? I don't remember anything. What are you talking about? It's really too much.
On the public to have no memory. That's all they can
you know
count
what? I guess, but there are too many people that were so profoundly harmed by their behavior You think of the truckers in Canada. I just think of the businesses in California that were just destroyed. And I'm beginning to get a growing concern about college kids who were forced to take vaccines in order to go back to college. This is I mean, you probably are up on the Biden versus Missouri case where the circuit judge there consistently, looking at the behavior of the government, saying this is reprehensible,
Well,
and
the
that
government,
behavior.
they did silence anybody who opposed the government talking points and government, which turned out to be government propaganda. And it was actual censorship. It just was a First Amendment violation. That's the reason why it is the First Amendment. We got to remind people, because without free speech, you don't have any other rights. They all go. So this was a government that you would think it would come out of something out of the 1950s that was way worse, actually, because it really did silence any opposition, anyone. And these are talking about doctors. These are active censorship from anyone who dared oppose what turned out to be incorrect medical assumptions. And the whole idea that science is somehow done and figured out, and we've got it all figured out, and yet you could silence anybody who opposes it. Science is just simply the process of experimentation to find a regularity. That's never finished.
It's never finished. It's a procedure. It's a mechanism to help us ascend to a contemplation of truth. It is not the truth.
And it's an openness to the truth, whatever that truth is.
Skepticism. Well, and the openness requires skepticism at all times. Always skeptical. That was trained in skepticism.
If you are not allowed to ask the questions, then it's not about finding the truth. It's about sticking to a doctrine. And then you're really talking about what I believe what all this was a religion. And it exposed what you and I both kind of saw coming back in 2020 was the capture of industry. I'm sorry, the capture of our regulatory boards by industry.
Right.
Whereas the revolving door between the pharmaceutical industry and government boards that are supposed to protect government health, the people's health, like the Center for Disease Control and the FDA, they're just a revolving door. And so you have very easily the mouthpieces of industry, which is paid by industry, like the New York Times, to just do a hit piece like they did on us in was it April or March of 2020?
April of 2020. But we're going to go line by line through it. We're going to go line by line through it because I want us to just mock the shit out of these people because that's the only defense you have. You can either take legal action and really hurt people, which is what their intention was, or at least what they did. I don't know. I don't really know what their intention was, frankly. I'm sure they perhaps thought they were just hysterical. Or we can mock them. And mocking is another way to sort of put them in their place. But back to your mention of McCarthyism in the 50s. In the 50s, and by the way, the very people that are using these tactics today to silence and undermine the First Amendment privileges of people are the people that my whole lifetime have been pointing at the 1950s and going, that is the worst excesses of any organization in the history of mankind, which I always agreed with and continue to agree with. But back then, because of the McCarthy era silencing of opinions, 90 university professors lost their jobs. And because of that, some laws were put in place to protect these people and their free speech. I was listening to Greg Lukianoff, a First Amendment attorney, on Lex Friedman's podcast, and he said, not only is the same thing happening, 200 professors have been fired today under the same sort of excess of silencing for not having proper speech, and those firings are accelerating. We're not stopping at 200. Those 90 in the 1950s we thought was unbelievable, will never happen again. Now we're at 200 and climbing rapidly.
What you have is an intolerance that is endemic to our society, and that's why it's important to point out these little Hitlers in our society. They're not so little. First of all, you realize, and not that you can excuse, but you see like the Gavin Newsoms and the Governor Whitmers of Michigan, the one in California here. They love being on the news every morning. They love being out there and getting their face out there. And it is a power that they love to have. But what is really interesting is how susceptible society is to panic, to a sense of doing something about an
I didn't
emergency.
know.
And it reminds
I agree.
We didn't know.
I agree.
We took it for granted that people would take a breath and not work so fast, and that these rights, which you just assume was written in stone, you realize it's written in a piece of paper, be taken away extremely quickly. It reminds me of an interesting book by it was Daniel Goldman in the early 90s about the Hitler's willing executioners. Now, his theory was that at the time before he wrote that book, it was that, well, there was a society just like ours, and then the economic conditions became so bad that they needed a scapegoat to blame, and they're going to just blame the Jews and gypsies and homosexuals. Well, that I bought it. So that was what academia kind of accepted. But what Goldberg was saying was that in Hitler's willing executioners was that that's not really true. Was that in society, in European society, some of the foundational thinking was anti-Semitism. Whereas every 60, 70 years, pogroms, even in the early 20th century. I was making a film in the Czech Republic, and in 1905, one of the centers of Europe, you had Paris and, of course, Vienna and London, Berlin, also Prague. And the town elders were like, this part of town is pretty beautiful. How can we get more of it? Well, you can't. It's already there. Well, how about if we just limit the number of Jews? So that's why in 1905, they literally kicked out and limited the number of Jews in that area. So this was the thinking of that book. Now I come back to the fact of, I just think that there are segments of society that are susceptible to looking to blame people. And if you just take out the word, unvaccinated during this whole pogrom of the unvaccinated, just put in the word Jew, put in the word homosexual, and you realize what this is. It's just another group of people to blame for their problems when things
scapegoating. Scapegoating, Rob. It's a scapegoating mechanisms are very powerful. They are in human societies and groups everywhere, and especially when the predominant personality becomes narcissistic. Then that narcissistic rage comes up, and as opposed to directing it at each other, they must all gather and direct it at one, which is much more gratifying. And what people who do engage in that behavior don't realize is it's mathematically certain that eventually everyone goes on the guillotine. Not just the people you're scapegoating. It's waiting for you as well. Just look at the French Revolution. It's a perfect example of it.
The United States was disproportionately the shaming and demonizing. The New York Times ran a piece, "I'm furious at the unvaccinated," and they said was disproportionately low income. So get it? These broke people don't want to help out. So they're mocking Don Lemon said these people refusing vaccines were idiotic and nonsensical. And Noam Chomsky, who made his a human rights hero for most of us traditional liberals, he was so far off on his saying. Noam Chomsky saying that that unvaccinated should remove themselves from society and be isolated. What about how would they get food? Well, actually, that's their problem. So we really have it was something systemic in our society that allows us, and what we need to be careful about next time this comes up, because I believe there will be a next time. Will we have learned? What will we have learned, and what are some of the signs that we could point to for our listeners to say this is a sign where we're no longer being logical and rational, and we're just looking for scapegoats?
Well, there's a lot of signs we could have looked at. And first and foremost, this idea of calling somebody or some group dirty, infected, gross, and less than any of that. It's funny. I just came upon an old Benjamin Franklin article where he was railing on non-whites. And what was he talking about? They were coming to the Pennsylvania that he loved and were destroying it. He was talking about non-Saxon Germans. They were the non-whites he was worried about. I mean, it shows you how our human brain will create groups out of everything, and it's faulty, it's delusional, it's not okay. We have to fight against it constantly.
When you see people who are rational and normal and a brilliant thinker like Benjamin Franklin, but there's still that part of all human beings that are susceptible to falling into the trap of scapegoating and being intolerant.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the thing to keep an
And
eye on.
now we've gone full circle. Well, now we're intolerant in the name of tolerance. This is the Rousseauian. Rousseau painted this picture. He created this nonsense. And Rousseau himself was a terrible asshole. Terrible human being. I mean, like beyond horrible. He with the what was his thing about the natives, the kind natives, or the hit some aphorism, and that's
what I noticed in Hollywood. They say, "Don't punch down." You're punching down with your comedy. Well, that whole premise of punching down means that you see yourself above these people, and that you need to protect them because they're so feeble and so less than you that they can't defend themselves. I find that horrendously intolerant as well.
It's a problematic construct. But I will tell you, hubris is the enemy. Okay, so there's one enemy we can look for. So irrational certainty. Irrational certainty has ruled the day. So rational uncertainty should always be how you position yourself. I got a little hubristic too. That's one of my self-criticisms back. We're going to evaluate our own behavior back in April 2020. And one of my shortcomings was I saw the panic being driven. I thought it was exclusively the press doing it. So I was fighting that back because I knew panic never makes things better, ever. But I didn't know the government was in on the act. Only recently have I come to understand with all the Twitter files and the Biden versus Missouri discovery. It's astonishing how much the government was involved with it.
It's incredible that it's gotten out. It really is incredible that it's gotten out in such a short amount of time. The only thing that's more incredible is how, and I wanted to talk about this because there became a point after Watergate, which when you look back at Watergate, I mean, Nixon was not involved on the break-in, didn't know anything about it. He was only involved in the cover-up, which was enough to have him, well, I guess we'd call it canceled now, and forcing him to resign. That doesn't seem to have been a big deal when you have now you have Joe Biden, the defense for the Democrats. Yes, his son took 24 million, but how do we know that the president was in the room? It was at his house. Yeah, we don't know if he was in the room, but the defense is an admission of guilt. How far we've gone, and I think the same way with COVID and how these things will be forgotten so quickly. And will there be any lessons learned? The only way we can do it is if we have some repercussions for this reprehensible behavior. You reelect,
that's right.
When you reelect Governor Whitmer, when you don't hold, when you allow Governor Newsom to make excuses and pretend that he was keeping things open when they absolutely weren't. That's just a lie.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And Trudeau, just a liar. I mean, the fact that they closed bank accounts. I mean, literally, they closed, one bank closed the account of, in England, there was a bank that closed the account of of a member of the opposition, a leader of the opposition, and the head of the bank there resigned. But there's no resignation in Canada. There's no resignation in the United States. There's no repercussions at all for this behavior. So what do we do?
Yeah. Well, I think it's coming. I think that, cases like Missouri versus Biden is going to result in some restrictions of these sorts of behaviors. I believe there's going to be some action on public health autonomy and their ability to run, fiat control over populations. I believe there are going to be some major lawsuits against things like universities that force kids to take a vaccine in order to come to school. There was an article that came out, Rob. This article came out this week in Circulation, which is a very fine, high-end cardiology journal. It's called Circulation. I've been sending it around to people, and it showed. It took my breath away. I was shocked at what an indictment it was. It showed that myocarditis was not that common and not that uncommon in young males. Certainly more common than severe COVID in that group. Okay, so myocarditis more common than severe COVID. So you're putting people at risk and taking away little problems. Okay, all right. And then you've heard all this. It's just myocarditis. It's self-limited. Myocarditis throughout my career is a medical emergency. And now this article showed for the first time that about half of the kids, these were adolescent males who got myocarditis, are going to have lifelong cardiac dysfunction, which means a significant percentage are going to end up in heart failure, hopefully at an advanced age, but if not, on the transplant list.
That is beyond criminal. That is stuff that was.
Well, that's where it's going to come. That's where it's going to come in from, stuff like that. So before we go read our article together, I want to set the stage so people understand this, that Rob and I have the life of our friendship disagreement about vaccines. And I've always been open-minded, and Rob's always been tossing me books and stuff. And the result of this experience in COVID has me reading Turtles All the Way Down and all these other books, trying to figure out, like, oh boy, I just became open to things I was not open to before. Now, having said that, I have still vaccinated all my elderly patients. They have benefited from it. I've seen no adverse event. Even if I did see an adverse event, let's say I got myocarditis, I picked a case, we saw myocarditis, and we saw ventricular dysfunction down the line, it still would have been worth it, because I see like people in their 80s and 90s, and those people, COVID was devastation. So it was worth the risk to prevent the devastation. But to pretend there was no risk and to mandate it and by mandate, I mean prevent people from going on with their businesses or their college careers, that's a mandate, guys. Mandating it for people for whom the benefits are not at all clear and the potential adverse events are starting to really mount up. I don't understand what we're doing. I just don't.
Well, it's even more criminal than that. I mean, the head of Rachel Walensky, the head of the CDC, knew a week ahead of time that it was not safe for pregnant women to take this. There was no proof
I still don't think her kid got vaccinated. They kept asking her, and she kept sort of avoiding the question. Like, well, he's been vaccinated. Why do you let him go to camp? It's like, camp. I mean, what am I going to do? Why didn't you let him go to camp if you were so convinced the vaccine was all you needed? You should have gone to camp.
The payoff for all these people on our regulatory boards is the revolving door. And that's why I support Bobby Kennedy for president, because he's the only one talking about this. The revolving door, if you look at Julie Gerberding, goes from the head of the CDC vaccine division to the head of Merck vaccine, who makes vaccines, which can totally, the only immunity that was given from the COVID vaccines was to the pharmaceutical companies to not get sued. So you have people like Julie Gerberding, and you have people like the new Julie Gerberding, which is Walensky, who just resigned knowing that saw the writing on the wall. And she knew that it was not safe. I mean, I remember, like, for pregnant women weren't even supposed to take aspirin. Here we have a drug that was tested on the last time 10 mice, and that's it. Yeah. And you're going to talk about giving it to pregnant women. And she knew from the Freedom of Information that these were not safe. She had that information, and she had that from Israel. And all of a sudden, she just says, she goes on CNN saying it's perfectly safe to do anyway. That's a crime against humanity. Now, going back to about the vaccinology, it's just vaccines. Vaca just meaning cow, and cow pox is what vaccines are. You have to look at this and look at the history of it. And how long did they teach you about vaccines at your medical school? In all honesty.
We know history other than the sort of somewhat apocryphal story about the guy that sucked the, cowpox in England, and then the guy that did the smallpox in the United States or in the colonial America. But it's sort of brushed past. A lot about immune function. A lot about immune function and what cells are activated and how they're activated, and some of the decent amount of science. But by the way, that was back when we were getting children got 5 vaccines back then.
Now you have it's an evergreen drug. It's an evergreen cash cow for once in 1986, when Reagan passed the Vaccine Childhood Safety Act. Congress actually, in the congressional record, Congress said the Childhood Vaccine Safety Act, the vaccines are unavoidably unsafe. However, it does justify the potential benefits justify this potential risk. Now, what I'm saying is, if you look back at that, if you take just to look at one drug, we'll take a look at two. If you look at the measles vaccine, if you can take a look at when the measles vaccine came into society, the death from measles had dropped, it literally dropped to practically 0 deaths. And that's before the measles vaccine was put in. I mean, they even made fun of measles on the Brady Bunch. So if you take a look at that, it was no longer necessary to vaccinate everybody. The same thing with chickenpox.
Well, there's an interesting. This was what was my pushback on that back in the day when you would bring this up, which was, you've never seen somebody die of measles. I have, and it was in a child and an adult. I've seen a child that was not vaccinated, and an adult that was vaccinated.
Well, did they have other underlying health issues, just like in COVID?
No,
did they have underlying health issues?
No.
Well, what
not
are the
at
numbers?
all. Not at all.
You have to look at.
Well, that's the point. I understand. So hang on. So I want to make your case for you. Hold on. I'll make your case for you.
If you look at the numbers before the vaccine, measles vaccines came in, before it came in, the deaths were practically 0. I didn't say 0.
So what makes me wonder, here's
100% safe. Never been a drug, 100% safe, 100% of the time for 100% of the people.
Right, of course.
That's what any drug.
But 100% true. Even Tylenol, whatever. I've had people die of liver failure from taking moderate amounts of Tylenol. So here's I want to make your point for you a little bit, which is I keep trying to figure out why the pediatricians are so aggressive with the vaccines. And then I thought, remember my experience with the measles? Maybe they've seen a little too much and it's biased them. They're not really looking at the numbers. The fact that kids don't really have problems with this, but they get to see the ones that do, and it biases them, and it makes them want to stop it. And they look at the vaccine data and they go, well, there's nothing here for these little kids. They do fine with it. They don't get myocarditis. We got to vaccinate the kids. I think there's something like that going on. Does that make sense?
Well, what happened? I think it does make sense, and I'm not saying that pediatricians. I think they're well intentioned. However, what we've done though is that, like, these common childhood illnesses like chickenpox or measles, to me, these are things that educate the immune system. I think it is a real problem how we're looking at this thing, as far as that bacteria and viruses seem to be the enemy of humanity. And that for every human cell we have in our body, we have 10 non-human cells. And this isn't the enemy. This is a bridge to a kind of balance with the world. So what we've done in essence, and I don't think, is we traded.
I got to take a break.
Yeah, we traded normal childhood.
I get what you're saying.
For chronic illnesses.
And I think this, maybe, and I think people are hearing this argument more than ever. And like I said, I would have dismissed this 5 years ago completely, and now I'm kind of thinking, we got to figure this out. There's something going on here. Rob, I got to take a break.
I know, right?
Yeah.
I had a good.
What'd they say? Tell me the NIH before we go.
54% of American children now suffer from chronic illness. That's an outrageous number.
Yeah, that in itself is something we got to do something about that. But by the way, I am going to be moderating a panel with RFK Jr. on October 27th in San Jose. You ought to come up there. I'll get you tickets. And with Asim Malhotra's coming, and a food capture woman that's an expert in that topic. I don't remember her name. It's on that poster. But it's at a big theater in San Jose, and I'm really looking forward to it. I love that RFK Jr. is stirring things up there. But I have to take a break, and I have a special present for you when we get back, Rob. So stand by. Special present after this break. Fall is right around the corner, which means dry, flaky red skin from allergy season is coming with it. But the best way to take care of your skin is with our skincare secret, Genucel. You don't need to worry about that puffy, tired eye look or those annoying dark spots or even dry, flaky skin, because Genucel Skincare has you covered. Susan and I love our Genucel products so much, we want you to try our personally curated skincare bundles. It's risk-free at Genucel.com/Drew. Genucel works so well, you can see the results in this unplanned live moment on our show when the Redness Repair Cream repaired my skin in just minutes right before your eyes. Their concentrated vitamin C serum helps keep your skin plump and hydrated. Plus, with their immediate effects, you can see astonishing results in under 12 hours. Quick, effective, and easy. Go to genucell.com/Drew right now to try our bundles and save over 60% today. And remember to enroll in Genucell's world-class concierge program for additional savings and free shipping. Don't wait. It's genucell.com/Drew, genucel.com/DREW. There are 3 reasons the central banks are dumping the U.S. dollar: inflation, deficit spending, and our insurmountable national debt. The fact is, there is one asset that has withstood famine, wars, political and economic upheaval dating back to biblical times: gold. And you can own it in a tax shelter retirement account with the help of Birch Gold. That's right, Birch Gold will help you convert an existing IRA or 401k, maybe from a previous employer, into an IRA in gold. And the best part, you don't pay a penny out of pocket. Just visit birchgold.com/Drew for your free info kit. They'll hold your hand through the entire process. Think about this. When currencies fail, gold is a safe haven. How much more time does the dollar have? Birch Gold has an A+ rating with Better Business Bureau and thousands of happy customers. I do not give financial advice, and previous performance is no guarantee of future performance. Visit birchgold.com/Drew to get your free info kit on gold. That is birchgold.com/DREW. These products have transformed my life and Susan's and saved our marriage. Discover the key to oral hygiene, regardless of your current daily dental routine. Whether you diligently brush and floss multiple times a day, or you struggle, you got bleeding gums, bad breath, plaque buildup, this revelation is for both of you. Surprisingly, over 350,000 Americans experience health issues that may be connected to their toothbrush or even caused by it, ranging from heart or blood sugar problems, forgetfulness, digestive difficulties, immune issues, all related to oral hygiene. Scientific studies have shown that a simple switch of your toothbrush can lead to a healthier teeth and potentially save your marriage. Yes, save your marriage. Our study, we did a personal study. My wife, Susan, hates the sound of the Sonic toothbrushes, but introducing the Real White Sonic toothbrush, of course, also their hydroxyapatite dirty mouth mineral toothpaste by Primal Life Organics, these products have transformed my life and Susan's and saved our marriage. It's much quieter. It's a very powerful toothbrush, but it is quiet and it saved our marriage. So, the Real White Sonic toothbrush from Primal Life Organics stands out among all other electric toothbrushes I've tried. It effectively eliminates plaque, harmful bacteria, promotes gum health. Get yours and enjoy 60% off at naturaltoothbrush.com/DREW. Yeah, I'm just thinking the powers that be would like me not to have a public conversation with a friend that I disagree with. That's the world we live in right now. Someone whom I disagree with, who I'm willing to talk to, and has some interesting ideas, and I'm, open to things I might have been way more dismissive of, but still not affecting my clinical practice. Not supposed to do that. That's interesting. Well, Rob Schneider, of course, still here with us. Rob, I want to bring to the stage a special guest that I brought in for you. You're smiling as though you're knowing smile. So
No,
is
I
that
don't.
guest available? Oh, look at that.
Hey!
Boom!
Hey.
Jamie
I thought you were gonna get the New
Lissow.
York Times. I thought you were going to get the New York Times guy on.
Well, Jamie, what he's saying is he's disappointed.
I was literally waiting to see which look of disappointment Rob would use.
Hey,
I was unable
love
to
it.
get Rob. Rob, I haven't been able to get you on the phone lately, and I asked Drew, "What if you just bring me on the show?" He can't say no.
That's right. There you go.
You look great.
So, Jamie, of course, you can see him all the time now on Greg Gutfeld show. You got some dates coming up you want to talk about real quick?
Oh, sure. I'm doing a show in a place where I opened for Rob Schneider, and actually met my girlfriend. A special show, the Egyptian Theater. I'll be performing December 9th. It's my first theater show ever.
That's in Idaho.
Is that in
Boise?
It's in Boise, Idaho.
Just say where it is, James.
Wow.
Yeah,
Egyptian Theater. I thought you meant in Hollywood.
I wonder if that's why no one's been coming to my shows. I haven't been announcing the city where they're at. I apologize. And dude, Rob changed my life. And you guys know he put me in the TV show. And he's one of my best friends in the world. And I owe this man everything. And I know sometimes people think like all I do is ride off the success of Rob Schneider. And that's true. And but I also have stuff I do on my own, separate, which is on my website, robschneidersfriend.com. I miss you, Rob.
I heard about that website. You mentioned that early in your early appearances on Gutfeld, and I thought it was so funny that I called Rob. And I go, dude, that guy that was the assistant on your show, Real Rob, who I thought was so great and so funny, he's just killing it on Gutfeld. And Rob goes, why don't you tell him yourself? He's sitting right next to me. I thought, oh my God.
That's right. Because Jamie, he's one of those guys who he's as funniest if you're right next to him. And like, you got to somehow redo this on stage somehow. And he found a place to do it on Gutfeld. You see how quick he is. He doesn't have to practice. He's just that guy. He's like the funniest guy that you know, that one really hilarious friend he had. That's Jamie.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, tell the story about how he got. I know. I hear the dogs. Oh, there. Tell the story about how he got the job as that character on Real Rob.
Everyone else said no. And we were that desperate. We were like, no. But Jamie was just the guy that, if you could just kind of do this, we had him read it, then just do that. And he actually is a terrific actor. And also he gets the comedic timing, you know, and we really had, I mean, some of the most fun stuff I've ever had is just being in the scene with Jamie, going back and forth. Like we were talking about this one thing where I'm going to give him a weapon to go, and his girlfriend gets attacked by a bear in the show. And which actually was much funnier. But Patricia, our partner on this, my wife, she said, well, it'd be funny to have Jamie attacked by the bear. And she said, no, it'd be funny if his girlfriend gets attacked and he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
And so
she was a vegan, and she would be upset if I fought the bear because she loved animals.
so they're very peaceful. Then you see her just go. And so there was
I really did love Real Rob. I really was a major fan. I've told you I like the music you selected, and I don't think I've told Jamie this story yet. You guys should watch it. I'm sure you can still see it on Netflix or on Amazon. But I've every time I see Rob, I give him this rash of shit, and I'm going to pretend like Rob's not here because you've heard it too many times. But I don't think I've told Jamie when I first started watching this show, I'm like, oh my God, it is so good, but. I watched to the end. I'm like, who did the casting? I'm like, I'm like looking at the casting, thinking they just overcasted that wife. And oh my God, the wife is doing the casting. And then I'm like, and then they go on and I go, his actual wife is in the show. I'm like, oh my God, I have to tell Rob this. And Rob died laughing when I first told him this. So I was thinking, God, no one's going to believe it, Rob. I'm sorry. They just overcast that wife.
Yeah, that's the only problem with the show. Your wife is not believable. That's the only problem with my life. My wife's not believable. Yeah. But it's been fun. And Jamie's, we got to end up doing season 3 somehow. You know, even if Netflix wants it or not, we're going to do it.
You really should. There are a lot of sort of diligent fans like myself that really miss it. And I told you this before. You've sidestepped this question a couple times. I love the music you use in the intros and outros and some of the jazz. Was that your selection?
Yeah, I did. I worked with this terrific Kevin Pinot. What's his name? He's a French composer, and he's really super talented. And I want to make sure and get his name right. Kevin, he's French, and I wanted some kind of French sounding music. Oh my God, Kevin Pinot. I'll get his name, but I'll put that on the website. He's a really talented guy, and he did the music.
Be very careful navigate these waters carefully. The way you're pronouncing his name in French is getting terribly close to their version of the word asshole. So be careful.
Okay. All right. I'm so sorry about that. I'm sorry, but he did a great job on that, and hopefully we're good. You know, it's really nice because it got to really get Jamie out there, and then I mean, it's just to see him flourish. I mean, if you see Jamie live, you really get a taste of like an hour of hilarity. And I hope people get a chance to go see him in Boise, Idaho, at the Egyptian. And where else are you going to be, buddy?
I'm all over. I'm finishing up a tour of Florida right now. I'm going to Orlando, Port Charlotte, and Dania Beach. You were just at that room. You sold out a bunch more shows than they've ever sold out there. I'm headed there this weekend.
Okay, well, you'll have a great time.
We're going to be down there. We're gonna be down to the following week, but we really do want to come see your stand up, and hopefully we can coincide on Gutfeld. The three of us, it'd be really fun if the three of us showed up sometime.
I learned so much doing those love lines with you, Doc, because you know what I also learned about, sciences was its irregularity. Because there was so many times, I did it so many times with you. After a while, because of you, I was able to figure out what the problem was. You said, well, this
clinical
is
science. Yes. Clinical science. Yes. That's what Adam always said. He goes, Adam said it this way, because people would go, Adam, how are you to say, to offer advice? And how do you know? He goes, because I've heard thousands and thousands of calls, and these patterns begin developing. He goes, if you're going to study polar bears, you study about 20 of them and you watch the patterns, and then you kind of understand polar bears. Humans are not, there's a lot of more variation, but it's not that different in terms of these little short assessments anyway.
And that's why,
all right.
But it did some of the same basic kind of problems, but it was great. And also the thing about what really made me angry about the New York Times attacking you is because you have spent your life, Dr. Drew, helping people and educating people and making them feel comfortable and never talking over people's heads. You would have somebody like me who's just this ignorant comedian, no medical degree, and you'd let me talk about things because it was coming from a place of experience. And that place, you didn't put us down just because you have letters after your name, like so many of these other experts.
And
you
Jamie,
never talk down.
Jamie, you'll be shocked. Jamie, you'll be shocked to know we're still doing that to this day.
Oh, I love it. Super happy. I heard for a while there you were a real Pinot.
It really, the word is actually Conard. That's actually the word. And I thought, yeah. No, canard is duck. That's one of the weird things about French. CA is duck. CO is asshole. It's a very weird.
Well, that's right. Because I remember I was making that one time, Conard, and nobody wanted to come over.
Conardo.
Okay.
So, Jamie, we're going to let you. Are you in Alaska right now?
I'm in Florida right now. I'm in. Where am I? I'm at the Sarasota at this nice place hanging out. I got 2 nights off at that long, the Longboat Key Island there. And I hit up, we did this weekend. It was all sold out, and I got some shows coming up this weekend, but we're almost all sold out. Orlando Improv, Miami, and Port Charlotte. So I'm here for another week.
Beautiful. Well, you can come on and plug some gigs.
Yeah, thanks, man.
Hey, I love
Not
you,
only
buddy.
that,
I'll
I'm
call
just
you
thinking you now. How does your ex-wife feel about things now that you're a massive success? Ha!
I didn't want to bring that up.
Thank God they don't get the news up there.
All right, listen, Jamie, thank you for stopping by. I just wanted to surprise Rob, and
good
to see you. Hopefully, we'll cross paths soon.
I'll talk to you later.
See you, Jamie. All right, we'll do. So, speaking of comedy, we are going to do a live After Dark on November 6th at the Chelsea Markets, part of the New York Comedy Festival, with Jimmy Fela and Kat Timpf. November 6th. Susan is producing that. Is very excited about it. Do you want to say something about it?
No.
Yeah.
Whoop, can't hear you.
Get your ticket.
Nope, not hearing you.
Sorry.
There you go.
Yeah, technical.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Caleb's making a link at drdrew.com/New York Comedy.
And we also need to put a link up to the October 27th thing, the thing in San Jose.
Yeah,
we
and
should do that too.
he's going to show that poster too in the link.
Okay.
He's going to make a link for that. I think Caleb, what did I say it was going to be?
There it is. There's the poster right there. Truth Tellers. It's called Truth Tellers. I'm the moderate moderator. I'm moderate.
Yeah.
But speaking of moderate,
you're open to debate and discussion, which is that's how we have to discuss everything. There's no subjects in a free society that should not be talked about. And I do think we have to do that. And then to come to a place where we don't demonize, we can discuss and disagree. And hopefully if somebody has a better point than me, I'll be more than willing to hear it and also adjust some of my preconceptions and foundational thinking.
You know,
not
me too.
always.
But you know what? This Israeli-Palestinian thing has led to some language and some proclamations that are really uncomfortable to hear. And I thought, well, at least we're doing it. At least people say it. They feel they can. And I would guarantee and defend those people's rights on either side to say things, even when I just don't like them at all. I think,
yes.
And I noticed we kind of tolerated it. I was kind of proud of people.
Well, you have to, the alternative to free speech is tyranny. The idea, I want to hear what people have to say. And truthfully, the free speech isn't to protect the good stuff that you like. It's to protect the horrible stuff. Because where do you draw the line, and who gets to draw the line? And I do think
Who gets to?
part of this COVID experience was really an eye opener to find out like who can be silenced. And if they can silence doctors, if they can scientists, then and if they can ruin the careers of these people, then they can ruin anybody.
Yeah, here's a Claire Cat saying, question authority. That's right. Not only question authority, but the comedians and the journalists were the ones constantly picking at authority. That was their job. Now they're towing the line of authority. It's such a weird, if you've lived through all that, it's so weird to see it reverse like that.
Well, what happened was there became a point, and I think Glenn Greenwald brings this up too, where, in the 70s, you had people who didn't come from wealth to got into journalism. They went into journalism to go after the man, to not support government talking points.
Yeah.
And now you have more wealthier people that kind of come into it with an agenda, trying to kind of support this the partisan politics, and the objectivity of journalism has now gone out the window, and it's been replaced by this 95% of the partisan journalism is one-sided, and it's just liberal intelligentsia. Ooh, there's the piece.
So
Look at that right there.
Yeah, so let's work our way through it. We're going to go through it line by line and see how it has aged. Okay, you ready?
So glad to use your picture, not mine.
I know. I noticed that. I had forgotten that was in there, but I thought, all right, so that's interesting. So here we go. Misinformation.
Yeah, Jeremy didn't contest.
Say it again. Well, I saw some of your tweets. They weren't exactly warm and friendly, but
I retweeted it today.
They were, but they were, although they were excoriating, they were accurate, man. They were accurate.
Yes. Okay, let's go over it.
All right, so here's the beginning. Misinformation about the coronavirus continues to circulate across swaths of the American media, on popular podcasts, in blog posts, in online videos, and on primetime cable news shows as recently as this week. So he opens with already selling past the sale. So his statement is he's already saying misinformation is a thing, and I can tell you what it is. That's what he opens with. He doesn't discuss what is misinformation. How do we know misinformation? He already decided he knows.
Of the misinformation. It is what happened. I forget there's a Latin term for it in law. It's petitio de blah blah blah. But it basically make an assumption, and then an accusation, and then use that accusation as proof.
Right. There you go. That's exactly what they've done. So some of the disseminators are entertainers, others are medical doctors, some are conservatives who insist the virus is being hyped for political purposes. What do we think about that statement?
It's laughably true. I mean, it's like he was his own Ouija board there.
That's right. Oh, and here comes Rob. One is a comedian with no medical training. By the way, I saw somebody on the Twitter, on the chat room, saying Rob has no medical training, which Rob pointed out to you. He has no medical training, who has raised doubts about vaccinating children. So that's at least accurate.
Yes.
At least that's accurate.
Yes, I have. I'm an American, and I observe, and I also notice that I've been with parents who said their children.
Well, hold on. Don't listen. Let's not get into that yet. That's a different topic. Even as President Trump and the federal government's top health officials warn that the virus is not something to be taken lightly. Did we ever say the virus is not something to be taken lightly? Did we ever just say ignore it? Or I remember my mistake was I compared it to other things. I kept saying, look, we went through H1N1, killed 300,000 people, and you don't even know it happened. President Obama elected not to make a big deal out of it. I had H1N1. It was horrible, and it killed a lot of people. It's one thing if we'd been all aware of it and concerned about it and working to reduce it. No, you don't even know it happened. So we're going from a serious virus where you didn't even know, to a virus that's more serious, and now we're destroying the world over it. Now, something's missing. There's some steps in between that we could be taking. Yeah.
just as missing is that no one died of the flu for a year. No one died of the
There's
normal
that, too.
flu. So, we have to question these things. But continue, please. This is getting fun.
Okay. The authorities reported more coronavirus deaths in the United States on Wednesday, and this was a deadly virus. These commentators make misleading comments, cherry-pick facts, and go so far as to claim that the virus could be a hoax or a North Korean plot. So that was some of the politicians. That wasn't you or I, right?
Yeah. So they're tying us into those insane statements. Because there was the inflation and the conflation of everyone who died automatically being assumed. Because it was scary at the time. It's like, this guy's parachute didn't open and he died of COVID. My goodness, everyone's getting it, So you have that.
And now this is the yes, and the conflation, and probably the appropriate time to use Conard also. So here we go. Here I come in. So Dr. Drupinski, celebrity addiction specialist, who's HL. This is. Before I read it, I'm going to tell you this is categorically false and untrue. Specialist whose HLN cable news program was canceled after he speculated in 2016 that Hillary Clinton might be seriously ill. So none of that happened. The cancellation of my show was 3 months before all the controversy about some comments I made about Hillary's health care. Not her. She was seriously ill. She had a transverse sinus thrombosis and a stroke. My whole commentary was how crappy her health care was. I was really concerned that I can smell when celebrities have doctors, whether celebrities calling the shots, and I could just smell it there. And I was like, hey, they've got her on Armour thyroid, which causes hypercoagulation. She's had a transverse sinus thrombosis. Why are they treating with Coumadin and not Eliquis or one of these other new anticoagulants? And by the way, so I made a whole series of criticisms of her healthcare, to which her doctors adjusted her care, changed it, and got proper consultation.
You kept her alive. It's your fault. No, it's the same thing. But the thing is, once you go down that road, the next thing, Drew, they're going to say that you're going to accuse Elvis's doctors of being giving him the wrong treatment. And if anybody was taking care of somebody, famous person, it was Elvis's doctors.
Well,
that's the problem.
I see so much of that, Rob. I see a lot of that.
Well, you see, truthfully, famous people, it doesn't help you. You don't want to be Dr. Basil Salame, who's a chief of. That's why I think I know so much about medicine. I have friends who do, so I can talk a little bit. But Dr. Basil Salame in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, he's the chief of surgery there. He said that you don't want to be a famous person. You don't want to be treated as a famous person, because then they take you and they put you in a special room very far away from all the machines and the nurses. You want to be in the same area as everybody else, close to the machines. It's like, when Lincoln probably would have survived. This is, he would have been obviously had brain damage and everything, but they had, I think it was 11 or 17 different doctors keep putting their finger in the wound, pushing the bullet further into his brain. And so when you think about it, it's like, you just want to be a normal person.
Yep. No, that's exactly right. And look, it's probably the case that who was the most famous doctor that signed the Declaration of Independence? I'm blanking on his name, but he killed George Washington. He bloodlet him so much he bled to death essentially. Yeah, he had pneumonia, and they kept bloodletting him.
He prevented a young doctor from giving him a tracheotomy so he could breathe. He said, "There's this new treatment that's happening in France. You are not to cut the throat of our great president and founder of our country. We will let him die now." And that's what they did.
No, not let him die. We will bleed him. we will let him.
Benjamin Rush.
Yeah. Benjamin Rush. Thank you, Benjamin Rush.
You were accused,
how do we get down that path?
Well, the Hillary Clinton thing, I wish they would just be honest, the press, and just say, listen, he may know what he's talking about because he's a certified doctor and he knows medicine, but he's not helping the Democratic presidential campaign. You can't do it. At least be honest about that. And if they would have said that, then I could respect that. But the fact that they just attack you.
By the way, Rob, that same day, it was my radio station that had me make that. I was on Don Lemon's show the night before. And on that show, Lemon, as he always did, was like, "What's up with this narcissist, this nut, this crazy, this Trump guy?" And I was sort of, analyzing him. I was not particularly kind to President Trump, but I said one thing. I said, hey, be careful, because I described 2 other cases. One was a severe depressive and the other was a narcissist bipolar. And I said, would either of these guys be president? He's like, oh, no. And I said, well, that's Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt. So we got to be really careful when we start talking mental health with our leaders. You got to be cautious. So I did that same thing, by the way, with that Yale professor that came out and she announced that Trump was not suitable for office. And I described in detail Abraham Lincoln's medical history to her. And she was like, well, that guy shouldn't be president. I went, you just eliminated Abraham Lincoln. Well done, doctor.
There's certain
any event,
like George S. Patton. Believe me, we needed that extreme megalomaniacal narcissist to take his troops 48 hours in a row and think he can get them to break out through the Battle of the Bulge. And it was George Patton. They didn't want to use him. He slapped he slapped a soldier for having battle fatigue and for not wanting to fight because he was actually PSD, we call it now. And so he was, and rightly told to that was a terrible thing to do. But then you need people like this. It's like, and my own mother, she survived the Japanese occupation of the Philippines. And she's the reason they survived, because she was brave and she just was going to do things that maybe some other people didn't do, but that's how the family survived. And these people aren't necessarily the most calm and peaceful after the war. I mean, I wish I would have known more about it. I know more about it now and the trauma that she went through and how she saw life and how, and it's like, there's a great doctor, Dr. Gabor Mate. He worked with me for a little while.
I know
and
Gabor.
He said, so you don't think
I know Gabor.
You weren't, he's brilliant. And he said, you don't think you were generationally traumatized? I said, what's generational trauma? Well, that's the second generation. Well, how could I be? I wasn't in it. And I said, well, tell me about you. What do you do? He said, he said, your mother starved during the war. Is there anything that you do that? And I thought, well,
hoard food.
I never go anywhere ever without food on me, ever. And he said, where do you think you got that from? And I was like, so I didn't realize it can be transferred from the womb, and it can be, that generational.
There's 2 ways. Yeah. One is through behavior like that. And the other, they has some evidence of some epigenetic passage too. So this is a big deal. And Gabor has been highlighting the trauma and intergenerational trauma. I mean, trauma is the thing. And by the way, all the scapegoating is a mechanism of trauma survivors and stuff. I mean, it is. I mean, study because that's the way France, man. That's where this happened before, all this stuff.
Well, you have the difference between the French Revolution and the glorious American Revolution was the American Revolution. Well, the French just killed everybody and killed everybody who killed everybody. Whereas the American Revolution, they hang on to, they kept the rule of law and they kept private property. And they made this about individual rights. And so that's why it was so unique as opposed to the French Revolution and the Russian Revolution, which is just to kill everybody and destroy, start from the bottom, destroy civilization from the very beginning.
But they had a lot of commonalities in terms of the psychology and some of the strategies and things, remarkably. But anyway, here, let's keep reading. Drew has condoned on his current web program flouting the directives of public health officials who are urging Americans not to go about their business as usual. Boy, that turned out to be the right thing. Because
here's what you have.
Unfortunately, I got to tell you, I caved to that. Actually, I actually switched that. I was doing a nightly program on Fox 11, and when Newsom came out and shut everything down, I went, all right, I must be missing something. It is a hard decision he had to make, but okay, I'll stand by my leaders and be a good citizen. Little did I know that 2 years later, I'd be going, what the hell? What are we doing here? What is this all about? What is that?
I can say that I was also sucked into the, this is not affecting people who are healthy. It is true. It is not affecting detrimentally people who are basically healthy. And that turned out to be correct as far as 70% of the people who died from the coronavirus were very obese. Health problems.
The age thing was being hidden from us, consciously hidden from us. I recognize that in retrospect. Yeah, that was Dr. Fauci's tactic with HIV and AIDS too. What's that?
The idea is to shut down debate and discussion right away and dissenters. We have to eliminate them all. And if you take a look at what the real, if you start to go down the rabbit hole, which you and I did, obviously, was you start to realize, okay, well, where did this shutdown stuff happen? Well, the first country that they shut down was Italy, and then Spain. And then but where is the information that they were getting? Well, it was coming from Imperial College in London. Who was doing this research? And then, it's Neil Ferguson. Okay, well, who funds Imperial College and who funded this? And where are these statistics coming from? And that's coming from China. So it starts to all kind of come around to really the bankruptcy. And it was the financial bankruptcy. It was the moral and ethical bankruptcy of the West, which is what happened. And when you give your authority away, when you stop questioning, that's when you make yourself susceptible to tyranny. And that's the very definition of it. If you don't have a choice.
Or we have people participating in it. That's the part that surprised me, people participating in the tyranny. I always recall this young, go ahead, the ugly.
Well, you just got to see people who behave very badly. Who these are friends of mine, and some people that I did call out. And when you want to isolate and dehumanize people and say that they shouldn't believe and shouldn't live in society and shouldn't get medical treatment, that was like, I'm still waiting for Jimmy Kimmel to apologize for that, because frankly, I thought that was just below. He's a good person, and I think that he showed an element of weakness there that he should apologize for and be aware of, because we all have the potentiality to lose our humanity at a certain point, depending on where we're pushed. And it is just amazing where that threshold is. And for some people, unfortunately, it was pretty low.
So this guy goes on, Dr. Pinsky has also, I love this, handed over his program to the comedian Rob Schneider. I just handed it over. I'm sure today we can say the same thing. A former Saturday Night Live performer. I love his use of language.
Also a writer,
who says the coronavirus crackdowns. Yeah, I know. Who says the coronavirus crackdowns are nothing more than political stunts by elected officials seeking the spotlight. Mr. Schneider, who also opposed mandatory vaccines for children, appeared Monday on Dr. Pinsky's program and talked about going out to dinner in defiance of the new guidelines. How dare you?
Well, can I just tell you that was also a lie, because I went out to dinner on that Sunday and it didn't go into effect on Monday. So he is a sleazy liar, because if he would have just done his research, or I didn't. So that wasn't in defiance. It was as a last dinner where I know they're going to close everything down. And I got to tell you, these people love to get publicity. You can say that I can very, very easily say and mean that, Governor Newsom liked getting his face out there every day talking about things, what he can do, and didn't mean it. And he was a hypocrite and proved hypocritical. The only reason he apologized for not wearing a mask at the French Laundry is because someone took a picture of him and had proof. Otherwise, he didn't care about it. He would have never done it. He didn't really believe it. And isn't that the fact? They don't really believe these things. They just use them for political gain. And so I think I was correct, and you were correct in the whole article. Thank you, Jeremy.
Here's the last. What's his name? Jeremy S. what?
Jeremy S. Peters, New York Times.
Thank you for being so accurate. So here's his last gasp, and then he goes on to other people. This is in quotes now. This is not affecting people who are healthy, Mr. Schneider said falsely.
First of all, this is not affecting detrimentally people who have or are of good health. And I like that he already says he had already made that predetermined that conclusion himself, that was false.
Yeah. He who takes aim at you for not being a medical expert is expressing a freaking medical opinion himself.
Yeah.
How disgusting is that? How upside down? And then they go on to go after me. Dr. Pinsky agreed, saying sick people should stay home, but everyone else go about their business. And I'm sure I said elderly people too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I said that.
You might have.
Isn't that just sum up everything?
It was.
But what have we learned from this experience? What have we learned? Where can we go from this? What are the signs that we're being lied to next time? Or will there be any signs? Will there be repercussions? I know you're saying you're hopeful that there will be, but there hasn't been. We've reelected these people. People want to move on from these painful things. They do. So you have the potential for the same rhetoric, for the same lockdowns and the same things. I hope that people, because when they started talking about masks again in Los Angeles, which is a very liberal place, they knew not to push it too far because they were getting enough pushback. And I think that's what's going to have to happen. In a way, hopefully, I will say this experience, I'm hoping, is you'll like this, an inoculation for future prevention of tyranny.
Yeah, I agree with that. And our producer Emily said, her quote is, "Calls into the New York Times newsroom went unanswered," which we tried multiple times to get his. We tried to get his take. Also, I tried to get them to correct some of the stuff back in April 2020.
I would have accepted his apology. I would have accepted Jeremy S. Peters, New York Times, his apology, because I know what pressure he was under and what he was told to write. He wasn't thinking for himself. This is stuff. So I would have completely accepted his apology. It just is still forthcoming and may never come. And that's what they hope for. They hope that you don't call them on any of this, because they don't get called on it, Drew. Except on your show, which you've given to me.
You and I
apparently.
both, we tried to call them on it back in April 2020, and they just blew us off.
We called the attorneys too.
We had.
And didn't you almost like lose a job or something?
Rob,
Rob,
did you lose a job?
Well, I was fired. Hey, baby, there's somebody at the door. Mandy, can you get the door, please? Mandy, get the door, please.
Oh no, it's Jeremy.
Oh, it's Jeremy. Okay. Well, no, I did. I was fired off of a I don't want to say the streaming service's name, but it rhymes with Schmetflix, for vaccine. For my vaccine stance. But I didn't go public with it because I honestly understood where they were coming from, and they were having it. That was their policy. And I didn't take it personal. And I do think, I was hoping, and I think that they will get over it. And I do think we do need to exercise our forgiveness, not forgetfulness, but our forgiveness. And I would be more than happy to forgive anybody. Be more than happy to forgive all those people who defamed me and who said horrible things about me and accused me of killing grandma on the internet. I forgive you, because I don't even need your apology. I forgive you for it. But it would be nice if people would acknowledge the fact that there is a tendency for us and as human beings to be intolerant. And from that, horrible things could happen. And that intolerance needs to be confronted. Each of us needs to look at ourselves and go, how can we make ourselves better human beings? And I know that one day I'm going to do that. And I hope you will too, Drew.
So you asking what kinds of things we can look for as clues to we're getting into another problem. To me, the hysteria was the hysterical quality was the part and the first thing that caught me was my ear. I was hearing the same words from the press, and the words were meaningless. Literally, the first thing I heard was, there have been 30 COVID deaths in the United States. Staggering numbers, staggering. And I thought, what word are we going to use when we get to 100,000? What are we going to use? Why are you saying this is staggering? So staggering is the first word. That was the first word that caught my attention. Then this other one went on and on and on. And it's actually his last two words in this article. Jeremy used it in this article. Let me read it. Mr. Paul, meaning we're talking about Ron Paul here, pointed to the small U.S. death toll at the time, which was at the time he was speaking. Noting that it was not even over 100 people. It has quickly reached that grim milestone. Grim milestone. Those are the two words. If you see staggering or grim milestone, you know something is up. Or my other theory was, or maybe it's just the press or the propagandists get onto a word. They just get going with a word. Maybe it's not always grim milestone or not always staggering, but it's some word that somebody uses and they go, oh, that's the word. I'm going to use that. And it's used in every report over and over. And that's how I knew it was wrong and hysterical and wrong-headed. Yeah.
In the witch burnings in Salem, the difference between the people who did the witch trials and this woke and scientism, which is a taking science and making a religion of it, at least the people who burned witches, even they had humility and know that they were beneath Jesus's, and they needed Jesus for redemption. They were below that. They had some, whereas the new group of people don't feel like they're beholden to anything or anyone. And they are this righteousness that is above anything. So I find that is unique, and we should be careful of that in the future, to keep an eye on that intolerance and that new indoctrination.
And also the sin and dirty, and so it's grandiose caring, self-righteousness, and then being able to see the sinful and the unconverted. That's the construct, and that's what we've been dealing with. And then the scapegoating.
I'm glad we solved all these problems so quickly.
This was a fun little romp.
I'm with you. You are calming, and I always feel better. And that's why you've been such a help for all of us over these years. And that's why, like, it was so important for them to attack you, because you were a voice of reason, and they couldn't have reason at that time. They had to expel reason.
Right. It turned out that was part of their playbook. The playbook was to go for people with pedigrees, who people listened to, who were reasonable. Jay Bhattacharya, guys like that, Robert Malone, they just had to go after them. You know, what's interesting, you a little while ago, you were talking about pregnant women and how we don't let them take any medication, which is true. I've always said this. I don't let pregnant women take any medication. That's my policy. And I was doing my board reviews, and as for internal medicine, I came upon my rheumatology questions, these hundreds and hundreds of questions we have to go through. And in one question, they pointed out that hydroxychloroquine, which is a routine medication for our mild lupus patients, hydroxychloroquine is so inert and harmless, you should continue it while women are pregnant and not even think about it.
Well, that is
and
exceptional.
I thought, oh my God, it's the only medication I can think of where that recommendation was explicit. Like, just keep the hydroxychloroquine going, because it's a nothing. And I thought, yep, there we are. And people who'd never heard of that medication before had strong opinions about it. That is, again, that's the irrational certainty, hubris. Those are the enemies.
What do you say to, like, the CDC knowingly lying and calling ivermectin horse paste, and y'all need to not take this? What is there any comeuppance for those people? Does that person get fired who tweeted that? Can we have? I
don't know.
Can they
took that down. They took that down, and there was so much craziness, At the same time, you don't know this, on the CDC website for refugees, or what do they call? What's the other word for refugees? Asylum seekers from most countries in the world. The CDC requires them to take 5 days of ivermectin. Yeah, you have
before you come into the country. That's unbelievable.
Correct. Everybody. Yeah, it's on the website. It's on there. Yeah. So there you go. They
didn't delete it,
Caleb.
That's on Twitter. They actually, it was the FDA. The FDA didn't delete this.
Yeah, the FDA did that. Yeah.
Oh my God.
But I think people have woken up to it, and I think that people will not be shy about asking questions, and hopefully they will be shy about silencing others. That's my hope. I mean, that's what I got to cling to. So. It's still the greatest country in the history of the world.
And we have to see about cleaning up this capture thing. You mentioned the very early in our conversation, you mentioned what's his name? The
Robert Kennedy,
son of the. No, you mentioned Hunter Biden. And my biggest fear about Hunter Biden is the shenanigans. The reason that his shenanigans have been allowed, because they're all involved in shenanigans. That's what scares me the most. That if they started uncovering what he was up to, they all would have blood on their hands, so to speak. That scares me a lot.
You have to have the same laws for everybody. And when you have a law on the books, you're not supposed to protest in front of the Supreme Court justice's house or any judge, and you don't enforce that because it's a different ideology. Well, then you are just showing to the American public that there are two systems of justice in America. And that's not okay, and that needs to be rectified. And I will say that America can come back from this and will come back from this, just like in the Wilson administration, another very progressive presidency, where they put in the IRS, which is supposed to be temporary. That's been there ever since. But he threw into prison, and he ran as an anti-war a presidential candidate, Woodrow Wilson, and then of course, got us into the war and just imprisoned any war protesters, just threw them in prison. So America has gone down. And we'll come back from this too.
And that was the original sort of beginning of the modern interpretation of the First Amendment and free speech was the Wilson.
Yes, as a matter of fact, in the congressional record, they put in propaganda. I wasn't going to mention that, but yes, that's true. It's like we need to talk and we need to lie to the American public to talk to them. And that's where they said the Hun are ripping apart Belgian babies. So just be very careful as we move into this this war in the Middle East now. Just be very careful and ask for proof now. When they say the Iranians paid for things, we can't just make assumptions. I mean, maybe they did. Everything looks like they did, but can we not we have to be careful talking about war and expanding wars, how we make judgments moving forward. And that we need to question, just like we need to question, and what we proved out our questions were valid questions 3 years ago during COVID. We need to continue to allow the questioning of everything that our government does, and especially in the area of war. So it's a lesson, and like I would say, it's important that moderates, and I'm a moderate, you're a moderate, that we are allowed to speak and ask questions. Anything our government does, or the free speech, it doesn't mean anything.
Rational uncertainty. But Rob, you're not a military expert. How dare you talk about anything? Don't even discuss war because you're not a military expert. How dare you?
Something tomorrow to slam me on that. And I got the perfect writer, Jeremy S. Peters.
All right. Well, listen, it's great to talk to you. We sometimes do get in trouble, you and I, so we'll see what happens.
I had to get an insurance policy before we had you on the show today.
Me too. Well, let's see if I'm still working next weekend.
All right. We'll all go see Jamie, and you're going to come up to San Jose and see me on October 27th, and then the New York Comedy Festival November 6th, October 27th, November 6th. And Rob, anything you want to put out there?
Yeah, I'm going to be in Roanoke, Virginia on Saturday, and Friday I think I'm going to be at an opera house in Virginia. I don't know the other place. I'm sorry.
Wow.
But I'll be in Virginia. You can look it up, RobSchneider.com. Opera house. It's beautiful. The people working there love it because it's just a microphone. They have nothing to clean up after, a microphone stand, and then they just throw away my bottle of wine.
Good
and then
acoustics.
Yeah.
But
thanks for having me.
And I think you will probably encounter people that watch today's show and will probably show their appreciation. So
we have a big crowd out there on Rumble today too.
It'll be interesting to see what they say.
They love you.
All right, Rob, we've been very generous with your time.
Good turnout on YouTube too.
Yeah, we've kept you long enough, my friend. We'll hopefully see you in person soon. And hi to Patricia for me and Susan.
All right, we'll do lots of love, Susan. Take care.
Love you.
Bye
All
now.
right, guys. See you soon.
It's so funny. I'm thinking about when he was on our show. It was called Dose of Dr. Drew.
Yes, back then.
And I was looking at the studio, and it was I produced it. It's pretty funny. We put it up on Rumble for you guys to see my tech skills back in the day.
And then Caleb stepped in and cleaned things up.
He's like, yeah. And then when we stopped doing Dose of Dr. Drew, nobody went, oh, what happened to Dose of Dr. Drew? Not one person.
I know. Well, kind of more.
They were so happy to see me go.
But Peter McCullough tomorrow with Kelly Victory, John Stockton with Kelly Victory, Scott Adams coming in next week. It was supposed to be Vivek Ramaswamy, but they have ghosted us a little bit. That was one of our special guests. Michael Turner with Kelly Victory the following week, and Carrie Lake has agreed to come in October 19th. So we got a lot of good stuff coming up next couple of weeks. Tomorrow is our normal time, everybody.
But if anybody's in New York, get tickets to the comedy festival because it's going to be a fun week, and Kat Timpf and Jimmy Fallon, who was on our show, did really well. They're coming on to, do an Ask Dr. Drew, and you can ask him questions in person.
I would love that. Nom Nom Yam is asking why we interviewed Kevin McKiernan. Stand by. That's all I'm saying. Stand by. We've got a lot of people on deck, and a lot of people are trying to load things up. Also, October 27th with Osim Malhotra and great RF Kennedy Jr.
If you're in San Jose,
that might be the 28th
as well.
Oh, beg your pardon.
It says 28th on the event. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Saturday. I was I thought it was a Friday, and I got that in my head. You're right. It's 28th.
You thought it was the week before.
I did that
That's
too.
when you have two doctors book a show. They book the wrong day.
Oh, well, if you listen to his recording, he left me a voicemail. He goes, "Hey, man, are you free on October 20th?" It literally sounds like October 20th.
But his Australian accent
But he
got in
said
the way.
Saturday, October 20th, and I should have checked.
It's okay. We're going. We changed our plans. We'll be in. You're going to be in Orlando and Boca Raton the week before, and we're going to fly in. So
look for that.
But I don't think the thing you're doing in Orlando is public, private.
No, that's for a pharmacy group. That's for an organization of pharmacists.
But if you see Drew cruising around Boca Raton, say hi.
Yeah, we love it down there. And are we doing David Rubin while we're down there?
No. He's going out of the country.
How about Viva Fry?
Viva Fry, yes.
Okay, we're
going to do his show on Locals.
All right, it'd be good to meet him in person. All right, everybody, we'll see you tomorrow, 3:00 Pacific time, correct, everybody? Usual time?
He's going to take us fishing, remember?
Usual time before I talk about the fishing? I didn't really want to go fishing.
Yes. Tomorrow at 3:00 Pacific with Dr. Peter McCullough and Dr. Kelly Victory.
Yeah. And then Thursday, it's early again because we have to catch a plane home.
Right. It's at noon?
I believe so.
Noon Pacific.
Yeah. Sorry it's early, everybody, but we're on a travel schedule.
Yeah, we've got these weird travel schedules that screw us up. And yes, and that will be with John Stockton and Kelly Victory, 12 noon Pacific time. There we go. All right, we'll see you then. See you tomorrow at 3:00 Pacific. Ask Dr. Drew is produced by Caleb Nation and Susan Pinsky. As a reminder, the discussions here are not a substitute for medical care, diagnosis, or treatment. This show is intended for educational and informational purposes only. I am a licensed physician, but I am not a replacement for your personal doctor, and I am not practicing medicine here. Always remember that our understanding of medicine and science is constantly evolving. Though my opinion is based on the information that is available to me today, some of the contents of this show could be outdated in the future. Be sure to check with trusted resources in case any of the information has been updated since this was published. If you or someone you know is in immediate danger, don't call me, call 911. If you're feeling hopeless or suicidal, call the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-8255. You can find more of my recommended organizations and helpful resources at drdrew.com/help.
I remember like the first window to my addiction opening was when, my grandfather would be in the bar all day and everybody would be smoking. And I always wanted to try a cigarette. And my mom, because I had asthma, my mom told me, if you ever try a cigarette, you'll die. So I remember being, whatever I was, 11, 12. And I remember the first time where I was like, I'm going to risk my life. Like I'm going to probably die right now. Like my friends were smoking like Marlboro Reds. And I took a pull of a cigarette. I got lightheaded and I didn't die. And I was like, instantly, it was like, what else are they lying about? And it was like, right. Let's go. Like, make the calls. Like,
that is why you don't lie to your kids.
Yes.
Interesting.
How do you feel about Santa?
You can tell them fibs and stories, but when they ask a question, you gotta tell them.
I like that. I'm anti-Santa.